human responsibilities and rights. It also explains why justice in English common law had to be developed outside the formal legal system as a separate law of equity. Human rights were not systematically developed in the West until the Americans added the Bill of Rights to the U.S. Constitution and until the international community adopted the UN Declaration of Human Rights only a few decades ago. The revolutionaries in France in 1789 talked about human rights, but I don't think they understood them or applied them any better than some of the people who occasionally talk about human rights today. A critical difference between the two systems of law is that the holistic system is primarily educational and inspirational, focused on transcendent justice, whereas the positivist system, which I studied at Harvard Law School for 3 years, usually serves simply to consolidate the status quo with all of its injustices. The holistic regards the use of any force to assure compliance as a failure of the system, and it reveres nonviolence, though not to the extent of absolute pacifism. The positivist system, on the other hand, and that's the one we have in America now, tends to regard the monopoly of violence and its application by the power of established government as the very definition of rule by law. That's, in classical Islamic law, that is a definition of the failure of law. According to some classical Islamic scholars, there are 7 universal principles of law, known variously as the kuliyat or universals, or the daruriyat, the essentials, or the maqasid. I use the word maqasid, the purposes. These best reflect the architectonics of human rights and constitutional law and Islamic thought. I know Noah Feldman has the idea that somehow we can teach the Iraqis principles of constitutional law when all the Muslims have to do is go back a few centuries and they'll find the most beautiful development of constitutional rights and obligations ever developed. Unfortunately, as I'll point out in these various principles, although the scholars were imprisoned for preaching these, all the great scholars were imprisoned for preaching these human rights, the tyrants who still exist in most of the Muslim world seem to never have heard of them. Or if they've heard of them, they certainly don't like them.